Coming up on the Health Feast.
And I like to talk about an aspirational self-identity. So if your aspirational self-identity is that you're a model of health for your kids, then you ask yourself, how is this choice meeting my aspirational self-identity? So I want to be a very loving father. I want to be a model of health. You can come up with any descriptors and that identity. And then once you have that identity, you can start living that way. It just means that each choice you make is reflective of somebody whose aspiration, whose identity is tied up in being a model of health for their children. And then eventually you become that, because each choice you make ties into that. But we all have a self-identity. So if you can create an aspirational one that actually drives desirable behavior and leads to, the type of life, the health feast, basically, the type of life that you enjoy, that you want to live, then that goes a long way in leading to a kind of more fulfilling life. All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Health Feast.
Yeah, it's a beautiful Monday morning.
I'm Dr. Rak.
I'm Rak and Po.
And it is a beautiful Monday morning. It rained a lot last night. You want to do a mind, body, soul check-in?
Let's go with you first. Go ahead. How are you doing? Because let's. What's your check-in?
Mind is good. I think one thing I have realized is I'm getting a lot better at recognizing when I'm getting upset or frustrated, and then calming myself down and responding differently than I would have in the past. I saw myself do that. I'll tell you a story. 6 years ago, I was going to Trader Joe's, and there's this spot I was trying to get, and then like the person, but I was turning into the wrong way, but it's right at the edge. So I was like, I'll just turn for a second and get that spot. And the person working there, who was like collecting carts, he put his hand up and said, you can't do that. And then I edged forward. I was so annoyed and upset. I edged forward a little bit and I hit him, not hard. I tapped him, but he looked at me and he was like, what? What? He was so shocked that I did that. I was so shocked that I did that. And my daughter was in the back seat in her car seat. And she was very young. So this must have been 8 or 9 years ago. Yeah. She was 2. And she didn't understand what was going on. And then I got out of the car and started apologizing. He was screaming at me. And my heart was racing. God, I never forget it. I just felt I couldn't. Then I didn't even go to the store. I told my daughter we have to go home. I was so shaken up from that experience. That's because I was so unaware of how my anger and frustration for not getting that spot was just flowing through me, that I just hit this guy. And that doesn't happen really anymore. And I think I share every week now. And one of the reasons I like sharing it is because it's maybe it's keeping me accountable, is that I've been meditating consistently, and I've been trying to do it. And this morning I got up late. I'll just be honest. I got up late. I've been having a hard time getting up in the morning. And one thing I've realized is if you don't get up early and do it early, then it may not happen. Because then you lose that control. The day gets away from you. It was important to me, so I dropped my kids off at school, and the first thing I did when I got right inside the house was go to the backyard and go meditate. Anyway, so I'd like to get back to going to bed earlier and getting up earlier. It's one of those things I've struggled with my whole life. I stay up. I like to stay up late. I tell myself I'm a night owl, and having experienced it in the past year, there were several months where I was doing that. I was going to bed early. I was getting up at 5:30, and experiencing that stillness in the morning and getting some really quality, quiet time to myself before everyone else was up. And so, for whatever you want to do, you could do some movement, you could do some meditation, you could work on something, you could journal. And so, I'd like to get back to that, but it seems somewhat elusive. Anyway, maybe we'll talk about that today, because we're going to talk about or get ourselves kind of centered in terms of what is important to us and why we want to make changes in our life. But why don't we just check in with you, Paul?
Uh, let's see. So once again, I feel like I'm always like scattered. So like today, same thing. Got up this morning. I don't even think about meditation. I don't know if it's like I know the value of meditation, but I think when I go to sleep late, just like you, I get up and I'm thinking like, okay, I got to get the kids to school. When I was practicing meditation, I should say not always, but I would practice getting up in the morning and try to get it done before I started my day, just like what you were
That's
saying.
right.
And I can see the value of meditation. I really feel like that's something I need to start practicing again, and sort of centering, like you said, and get back to that place of like prioritizing meditation. And what I liked the most about when I was practicing meditation was the ability to like sort of slow down your thoughts, or at least I
Mm,
should say my thoughts, and kind of like, because
mm,
sometimes I feel like you got so many things going on, like, oh, you gotta get this done, you gotta get this done, the checklist of the stuff that has to get done, and I don't get that time to like actually settle and be like, okay, you know, we're gonna start off with this meditation. So this morning, yeah, got up. First thing I did was take the kids to school, and then I started thinking about our podcast. Like, okay, how's the podcast going to go? What are we going to? I know we set the intention that today was supposed to be about this conversation. Was supposed to be about motivation, something that I'm struggling with now to get going. And so, that was going through my head. But just all the like micro decisions that I have to make, it can get overwhelming on certain days.
mm,
And
mm,
Monday is usually like the beginning of the week. So,
mm,
I start preparing for all the things that has to get done, who has practice, what time practice over, what time school's over, bills that's got to be paid, all that stuff,
mm,
happens. And
mm,
so I find that the last few Mondays, I haven't been ground and centered.
mm,
It's always like starting like, okay, and it's almost insane. Like, cause I'm like, I had every intention on getting something going. Like, okay, what am I going to eat? Like all those things are kind
mm,
of, you know, out of whack, I guess would be
mm,
how I would say. It's like there's no structure right now, as far as my health, as prioritizing my health.
mm.
So you asked me my check-in today. Well, that's my check-in. It's just,
Yeah,
I find that it's
yeah.
becoming like a regular thing, like where I'm like, I feel I'm always feeling like I'm scattered every Monday,
Mm,
which is a trip. Well, I shouldn't say it's a trip. It's just for me, it's like it's becoming like the norm for me. And I want to get back to when it was like I had, that space. I knew, okay, today, this is what I'm eating today.
mm,
This is what time I'm going to allot to go, get some physical activity going on, and like right now, it's just not happening. And
mm,
so, yeah, and that's what brings us to our topic today that I'm kind of curious and excited to talk about, because I find that I struggle a lot. And right now, I'm in a deep state of struggle, I would say.
mm,
Um, because I have every intention to get going. But as we spoke before, we were talking about how maybe I'm not clear on exactly what my goal is, and I feel like that's what I'm kind of
mm.
energized about what we're going to talk about today.
Okay. Can I first let me just say I hear that you're struggling. Okay. I hear that you have a lot of intentions to do good for yourself, and that's not happening. And that's not happening. And that really that in the midst of everything else you're experiencing, all the commitments, responsibilities, and on top of that, feeling like you're not fulfilling, or you're not connecting with something that you deep down inside feel like is a really important value, that adds to your exhaustion. That makes the whole situation seem even more overwhelming. Because it's not just that your life is busy and you're feeling it in the feeling the stress. It's that, and there are these things I know I could be doing, and everything else would feel better too. And so I'm just so far from that place. That's what I hear you saying.
Yes.
That's what I hear you saying. And I think that's a great way to segue into today's conversation, which is, you said, we both said different things, but they're actually the same. They're related. So you said, what did you say? Like, we're going to talk about finding motivation.
Right.
Finding motivation, and I think that's great. Some people, have you ever heard, like, authors, speakers, people on podcasts say things like motivation is a myth, or there's no such thing as motivation, or have grit and
Right.
bear
Right.
down,
Yeah.
and I don't. What are your thoughts about that? I don't actually agree with that. I think motivation is a huge thing, and I have an opinion about that, but I want to know what you think.
I mean, I think in my, so I can only speak from my own life experience, and I've been to a place where I'm highly motivated. You know what I mean? And I understand that there's certain things that, there's intrinsic things that motivate us, and then there's also things that are outside of us. And I feel like right now in my process, I feel like for whatever reason, I'm not inspired, motivated to like just start. And
Hmm.
but I do believe that motivation means something different to everybody. I mean, what motivates me might not be the same thing that motivates the neighbor. You know what I mean? So, do I believe it's
Sure.
something that's within you? 100%. I think it's something that it comes down to the individual's choice on whether or not that they can find something within themselves, and sometimes it could be something outside. Some people are motivated by a big house, or you know what I mean. So there's, every motivation means something different to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I found in my life, is that at different stages of my life, the motivation, certain motivators change.
Okay, so I heard you say some really good things that we should explore. One is that motivation can be that you've had periods of time where you're more motivated, you feel more motivated, and that motivation can come intrinsically from within and extrinsically. So maybe actually that's a good place to just expand. And I would say extrinsic motivation is things like if you're working and you get a bonus payment or something like that. That's extrinsic reward. And that could be extrinsic motivation because you really want that reward. Rewards are tied into motivation, but they're not exactly the same thing, right? So reward is like something you get as a result of doing an activity. Motivation, if you get a reward, for example, then you may be feeling more motivated to do that particular thing. But intrinsic motivation is what I like to focus on for myself, and also when I work with patients. And because extrinsic motivation, first of all, you don't have control over, right? So somebody might incentivize you, you might incentivize yourself, but at the end of the day, then that's only a strong, like, have you you've ever heard this? There's this idea of, sometimes people call it temptation bundling, where you you say, I'm going to only watch Netflix when I walk on the treadmill.
Mm.
And that doesn't work well for me because
Uh,
I'm like, if I really want to watch Netflix and the treadmill's, it's like, I'm just gonna watch it. Like, you have to have some degree of willpower to do this temptation bundling because you're the one giving yourself the external reward. Um, so intrinsic rewards, I like to think that they're this abundant source of um,
Mm.
motivation, because they come from within, and this is very well characterized, so that there are different forms of intrinsic motivation. Like, we can talk through it. Like, what feels intrinsically rewarding to you or motivating to you?
Give me an example. Give me an example for you.
I can give you the examples. Yeah. So one is autonomy. So autonomy meaning like you learn how to do something, or you're doing something that basically makes you more independent, makes you function more independently. Yeah, makes you function more independently. So you could imagine like learning new skills at work so that you no longer need supervision. Yeah, that's autonomy.
Okay.
That's different than, say, mastery. So mastery is another. So like if you're learning an instrument, you might be motivated because you're getting better, or you're learning a sport, you're playing a sport. So mastery is another. You've felt this before, I'm sure. You can
Yes.
think about
Yes.
the
Yes.
times
Yes.
when you're learning a new skill and it's exciting. Where's that excitement coming from? No one is paying you.
Right.
No one is
Right.
paying you to learn that skill. And another one is purpose. And so the thing that you are doing, it's fulfilling this higher purpose that you have for yourself, for your life. I give you an example for that. Like, I've never produced a podcast. We never have. I've never put together videos like the videos we're putting together. I'm learning how to do all that stuff. And it's not because anyone is no one is paying us. And
Right.
it feels like I'm connecting with my purpose. And so I'm very motivated to do all those things. Like, why am I Saturday morning? My whole family was so upset with me. My whole family was so upset with me because I was sitting in our room, in our bedroom, for 3-4 hours, like working with this podcast footage, just figuring out this stuff. And because this you notice I'm in my son's room again. Last week I was in a little meditation space, which I love, but it has this kind of really loud echo. Okay, so those are different types of rewards, but those also lead to intrinsic motivation. Does that make sense? So if
Yes.
I feel like I'm learning a new skill that's making me more independent, like cooking. Like, I learn how to cook a new recipe. I might be motivated because then suddenly I can like eat delicious food that I don't have to rely on someone to make it for me, and I have more control over what I put in it. Um, and if that's important to me, if it's important for me to be healthy, or eat healthy food that tastes good, and I want to do that myself, then that's kind of checking that box of autonomy. It might be checking that box of mastery too, because I might be trying to get better at it. And there's also maybe checking that box of purpose, because I'm thinking like, I want to make healthy food for myself, but I want to teach my kids how to eat healthy food and make healthy food. I want to, like, this is my purpose. I want to help lots of people learn how to eat healthy food. So suddenly I have this huge motivation for making healthy food.
I just want to write that down. I'm going to put that in my notes, actually.
You can,
Because that's a really good like for me. I'm all about like checklists and like, okay, this is that, okay, you know what I mean. And I feel like that's a great way to put it. And you asked me earlier, have I ever felt anything like that? And I have experienced um, a little bit of both, like you said, autonomy, um, purpose, and mastery.
mm-hmm.
I would say, during my fitness journeys or multiple fitness journeys I've gotten to a point where I was never a long distance runner. I would say this was probably about 10 years ago. I was able to do a 10-mile run.
Wow.
And it wasn't like I was never someone who enjoyed running at all. Like, matter of fact, I despised it. But I had gotten so fit at that time that I was able to like experience what they call that runner's high.
Mm.
To me, it was like I always heard about it, but never actually experienced it until I did. And it kind of, as you were explaining, autonomy, purpose, and mastery, that's exactly what I did. Like I usually, because like running is such a individual thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't when you're running, you're like what I found is that I had these inner conversations with myself to get me to it. Like I remember setting goals like on the road, like okay, I just got to get to that point
Mm-hmm.
and don't stop jogging. At
Mm-hmm.
that because long distance you're not sprinting. Well, I wasn't sprinting, but I was at a good jog, and I would I would feel the aches and the side aches, but I would just tell myself just to keep going, don't stop until you get to that point. And then when I would get to that point, I would revisit like, okay, how you feel? All right, you're still good. The side ache went away, and I just kept going. So I was able to do it on my own. That's the autonomy. I felt
That's right.
like, I felt like if I was running, the purpose of me running was to get healthier and to get
Mm-hmm.
fit. And then the mastery part came in was because I was doing it. I was doing like 5Ks almost every
You
day.
were going further, and you were probably getting a little
Yeah.
faster.
Right.
And you're
Right.
like, it's
Right.
not taking me as long to get this far.
No. No. And I tell you, that became a habit. Every day I was doing a 5K before work.
Wow.
So I would go
Wow.
out and do 3 miles. Yeah. And so yeah, so I definitely have experienced that. And man, that, is that what you're talking
Yeah,
about
it's
as far
absolutely
as
what I'm
like
talking about. So I do a technique is a technique. Okay. I do a style of interviewing. Have you heard of this motivational interviewing?
no?
So it actually developed years ago for substance abuse counseling. That's where
Mm,
this kind of method originally comes from. And it's a style of interviewing where you elicit the individual you're talking to, you elicit their motivation for making change. So you ask, it's a style of provocative and guided questions that are intentional. I could do some motivational interviewing with you.
okay.
I'll start just very basic. I'll say, Poe, why is it important for you to be healthy?
It's important for me to be healthy so that I can be around longer for my kids.
I hear that. Okay, tell me
And I
more
want to,
about that.
yeah, I feel like, well, that would be in the category of the grand purpose is to be around longer. But I think personally, I want to be able to fit into certain clothes. I want to be able to not feel
Hmm.
like aches and pains, that I have all over my body. I want to be able to, get strong again, feel like strong like I did when in my youth. So those are the personal reasons I think that why it's important for me to get healthy.
Okay, all right. So I hear like grand reason is for your family, for your kids. You want to be around for them. You want to be around for them. So for intrinsic to that, I hear there's this fear that if you don't change, you won't be around. That something may happen to you.
100%. Yes. Very true. Yeah, I mean, I want to be able to get old with my wife and see grandkids. I want to be able to live out, so long that I can spend time with my grandkids. I mean,
Hmm.
that's something that I can see, but I feel like at the rate that I'm going, it's and it's an ongoing thing. It's not something that's like I find that it's probably like I've shared with you before. It's like I mean, it's probably the most challenging thing that I've ever dealt with in my entire life, by
Yeah.
far. Yes,
Yes. Is your health.
100%.
Is
So
your health
is
and
my
taking
health.
control of your health.
Yes, and I'm just getting tired of the. I'm just getting tired of it, man. So,
You're
but
getting tired of
anyways,
it. Well, this is often also motivating for people is and I don't know what bucket that falls into, but when people are suffering, when they're uncomfortable, when
yeah,
they're in pain, that discomfort, the the desire to be at ease. Everybody has a desire to be healthy and to be at ease. Some people don't feel it as much, and this is what I'm getting at, that if you as you have more discomfort, as you have more I've seen patients who their motivation then suddenly comes because their knees are hurting so much, and
Yeah,
that
good.
yeah, no, that I'm hearing from you too, maybe that you have
Well,
some discomfort, and you have a desire not to feel that way.
yes, and I wanted to add is like, being pre-diabetic, dude. I know personally people that have lost limbs from, you know being diabetic, and it's like, man, not only do I not want that personally, being able to be mobile and walk. I mean, I also don't want to put that on my wife and my kids.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want it if I lose a limb, or
Hmm.
I don't want that to be something
Hmm.
that also now it affects their lives too. In some way or form, it would affect them. So
You feel
yeah,
like you feel like you would burden them.
100%. It would affect their life in some fashion. It will affect their lives too. So yeah.
Okay. Poe, you're illustrating so many of the things that I hear when I ask this question. Can I just pause and say that? First of all, you're illustrating like wanting to do it for family, okay? Because and then recognizing that it's not just for the family, but also the things that you want to experience. You want to experience, of course, it's great for your grandchildren, future grandchildren, for you to be around, but it's also great for you. And then you're highlighting um, this desire to maintain your independence as you get older. And this is something I hear a lot, that people fear either because of their own known experience with family members, or just just knowing how many people get frail, or more debilitated as they get older. And also a desire I hear from a lot of patients, like a desire, like, I'm going to retire soon. I want to enjoy that. Like, I want to travel with my partner. I want to do these things, and I don't want my retirement to be about my illness, how debilitated I am. And then I also heard at the very beginning, you said, when I asked you the question, you said you just want to look like the way you feel like you want to look. Like, appearance is important to people. That's true. It's it's also how you feel in your body. So how and I we can expand on that, but yeah, those are really big reasons for wanting to make change. So you have like these clear kind of light posts. Tell me about that a little bit more. Like, tell me about those reasons, and then how you sort of feel the habits you have now, the choices you're making or not making, and how they connect with those very powerful reasons that you have.
That's a good question. I'm just trying to put them all together. So, like, there was an exercise that I did at one of the immersions I was at, where you had to put down a number that you want to live to. And I remember I didn't even put down. I think I put down like
The age you want to live to.
the age. Yes, the age
Okay,
that you want to live to. And I think I put down like,
that's an
at the
interesting
time I
question.
thought maybe like nine. No, I didn't put nine. I think it was like 50 or 55 or something like that.
Hmm.
Which I'm 41 now, so that's not that far away. But then after learning some of the things that I learned about, to how to take care of myself, and this is like beyond
So
just
why
like, oh,
did
you
you
got to
put
eat
you?
this.
That is a young age. You put that down.
Very young.
Why did you put such a young age down?
That's I don't think I never thought about it. Like you said, no, but that's an interesting question to ask, because it is a very interesting question to ask, because that just gave me the exercise was to see that, like, you know most people don't think about when they if they could choose when they were going to pass,
Mm.
what the state of your health would be in 2 years before that date. So
Mm.
I put down 55. Why? I don't know. I just didn't see myself past that age. Maybe because those that I know passed away at a young age too.
Mm.
You know, So, um, but it was very eye opening
Mm.
because you know, knowing what I do know about when I make lifestyle changes, you can extend your life. I mean, you know this, Doc. Like you can add plenty of years to your life. So when I talk about my family being a motivator, my grandkids, future grandkids being motivators, I just feel I think that's the grand, but I feel like the personal reasons is something that I need to really focus in on. Like I do want to be strong, I do want to be healthy, I do want to be able to keep my limbs,
Mm.
and I don't know if that answers the question.
No, it does. I think connecting, so wanting to be around for your kids, your grandkids, that's some far off event in the future. I'm not saying it's not important. It's very important. But that's as human beings, sometimes when something's far off, then our day-to-day actions, it doesn't compute
Mm.
that, oh, what
Yeah.
I'm doing today is going to affect this very, because you think I have time to turn things around.
Right. Right.
So this action is not going to be the be all end all. And in this moment right now, like, I need to do this thing. I need to browse TikTok. I need to eat, you know,
This. Yeah.
this
Totally.
thing.
Yeah.
I need
Yeah.
this right now. There's no other way. So I'm not saying actually like wanting to look a certain way is necessarily a bad thing. I mean, that shouldn't be your only motivation. And I'm also saying, if you can start to connect with how your day to day actions connect with these feelings of autonomy, purpose, and mastery, that'll start to fuel these behaviors. That'll start to fuel these behaviors. And
Right.
one piece I want to kind of hone in on, because I think it's central to what we're talking about, is the purpose piece. The purpose piece, because that gets at so much of what your quote unquote goals are, or how to frame goals in a way that makes them really meaningful, right? So you could frame a goal like I shared when we talked about how I want to lose weight for my wedding photos. I want to look good for my wedding photos. And then I lost 30 pounds in 3 months. And then very soon after that, within weeks, I regained that weight. And because the wedding was over and the photos had been taken, right? So now if the goal is good health, if the goal is good health, and then you ask yourself, why is that the goal? And you have all these very important reasons. Ask yourself on a kind of more specific level, like, how does my daily choices affect my children? How does this choice affect, you know, not just how will it affect them if I pass away at an earlier age? How will it affect them if I have chronic disease or debility that they need to care for? But how does me making this choice today to eat this thing or not take care of myself, um, how is that affecting them today? And so for myself, I can tell you, like, I know, uh, if I get out of meditation practice, I become a lot more reactive. I become a lot more reactive. I know, I see it, I feel it, but my children notice it. My wife notices it. I will make my kids. I don't yell, but I say things or I react in a way that, like, my daughter's a very sensitive person. Like, it'll just upset her. I'll even get like sarcastic with her. Like that's my that's
Yeah.
but it doesn't matter. It's the energy that I'm putting out. It upsets her, I know, versus when I'm just more receptive to how everyone's feeling, and rather than reacting, I'm responding. So when I get away from a meditation practice, I was like, I remind myself it doesn't just affect you, but then it has all these downstream effects. Has all these downstream effects, affects
Oh,
your
yeah.
children, your relationships, and then that in turn affects the energy that I'm living in. That in turn affects my choices. That adds stress to me. Then I'm sort of eating differently. Like, wow, like that one. And I might spend 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 30 minutes, sure. Gandhi once said, I have so much to do today that I shall meditate for 2 hours instead of one. I shall meditate for 2 hours instead of one.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I understand exactly what you're saying because I can tell you that like even after you're describing how when you're not meditating, how it affects the trickle down effect that it has on everyone around you, you know, that's a big deal. And
Mm,
like you said, it affects, the food that you're eating. Like if you don't prioritize your meditation, you see the difference in your behavior throughout the day. And since I've stopped practicing, I can 100% say that I see how my behavior has been since I stopped practicing.
mm.
It's completely changed.
Can
So,
can we explore that for a moment? So when did you come back from? So you had never meditated prior to going to this immersion in Abu Dhabi, is that right?
nope, not a thing. Just didn't
Not
know
a thing.
how. Thought not a thing from not
Never.
a normal thing in my life. Yeah.
Okay. And how was it introduced to you in this
Um,
in the immersion program?
they had a few. Well, they actually had someone there that was a yogi slash meditation specialist, I guess, and she helped me and my co-partner on the show learn how to do it. And like because at that time, like I'm missing my family, like I'm away from home, and so just the practice of just like closing your eyes and being in your thoughts, and then having someone guide you through the breathing, having someone, and then even listening to some of the music and sort of, I don't know, it I find that it was it brought a lot of peace
Mm,
and a lot of clarity too.
mm,
And then on top of that, when you include the, removing caffeine, removing sugar, flour, and just eating plants, like it became like this like cocoon of
uh-huh.
health, because I was able to see my thoughts clear. I was able to, you know, de-stress, because I'm not working. I'm not, I don't have my kids. But I knew that that's when I found the value was over there, was in Abu Dhabi. I found the value when I actually took it serious. Because a lot of times, like when you're not raised in it, like not even in my culture do we meditate. So for all my life up until last year, I never had any kind of experience of meditation, of mindful meditation. I read about it. I see, whatever social media on it, but I never actually practiced it. So, but I can honestly say, if I reflect back, that starting our conversations, I was already meditating for at least like I would go in the backyard and I'd sit in the sun because it was during the summer and just feel the sun and just give myself, man, 15, 20 minutes
Mm,
of just and I was able to, when I would deal with my kids, because your kids do things that, at least for me, they trigger you. Like they trigger, like leaving, leaving their clothes all over the living
oh
room. Like,
sure.
these are the things that are just like, come on, you just got done
Yeah.
cleaning, or I just put
Yeah.
that away. You're leaving it
Yeah.
out. All the little
Yeah.
things that kids
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I found that when I was in a meditative state, or at least after meditation, I was giving my myself that little space between how I would react to a situation versus just being like, okay, it's okay, and then how I handled the situation was better too,
Yeah.
because instead of, like you're saying, reacting to the guy that was standing in front of
Oh
the
my God.
car,
I hit him.
yeah. So Yeah,
I
that's.
can't
I'm
believe it.
surprised you did.
I can't believe I did that. Like tapped him, but still, like my car physically touched him. Like I actually like forward. I mean, he backed up too. He was so anyway. That was a reaction. That was a reaction. You can see that happening in your life.
Yeah. Can I just make one comment? Like I remember telling my wife, "Hey, let's practice meditation together, or let's go to seek someone to have." Because I'm not an expert at meditation, but I said, let's see, because I noticed her reactions to um, things that my kids were doing. Right, she would react to them.
Oh, and what was her response?
She would always say she would like be willing to do it, but we just never did it. We just never prioritized it.
Can I share my so I shared last episode about how I started meditating in my car. And
Yeah.
and when I first told my wife, she was almost she believed me, but like she was doubtful that that was the reason that I was acting differently. Like she
Mm.
didn't really know, but she was like, "How could that be? Like you're just sitting in the car for 10 minutes." And neither of us, even though my wife and I are both raised Hindu, and there's a lot of meditative practice that comes out of
Yeah.
our tradition, our spiritual
Yeah.
tradition, neither of us really did any meditation or had any experience with it. And there was a night, maybe within the year of, I would say several months, 6 months, 9 months, I don't remember exactly, after I started meditating. There's a night I came home from work, and my wife was shaking. She was shaking, and my kids, they looked frightened, and she had been yelling at them. And she got so worked up that she was like physically shaking. And so then the first thing I did was gave her space and had her go upstairs. And then I just kind of calmed my children down, and she stayed upstairs for like an hour, maybe 45 minutes. I don't remember. And she said, because I had suggested to her after a few months, I was like, you should try this.
Yeah.
This is a really wonderful practice, and you'll start to like these things. You'll start to notice your thoughts, and but she didn't really want advice from me at that moment.
Yeah.
Um, but she came downstairs and she said, I I did meditation, and she said, and I feel much better. I feel much better. And she said I was able to see kind of what happened in a way that I haven't seen before. And so then she just started. Now I don't know if she does it every day, but often in the morning, she gets up very early. So often in the morning, I see her just sitting. If I come down early, which I did not do today. I got up late today. Anyway, that I tell you that because so many things have changed since then. Not just for me, but for our relationship, for how we talk about things, how we communicate, how because we both recognize the value of doing that, and also the value of kind of detaching ourselves from our thoughts, our ego, trying to come and understand where the other person might be coming from. Those things become more readily available to you when you cultivate this sense of awareness, and also, I would like to say, this work on this dissolution of your ego,
Mm.
because so much of our conflict comes from this belief that ego is an interesting thing, because we've talked about it, and when I interviewed you, when you interviewed
Yeah.
me, um, and I like to talk about an aspirational self-identity. So if your aspirational self-identity is that you're a model of health for your kids, Then you ask yourself, how are my daily how is this choice, how is this choice, how is this choice meeting my aspirational self identity? So I want to be a very loving father. I want to be a model of health. I want to be, you can come up with any descriptors
Mm.
and that identity. And then once you have that identity, you can start living that way. You can start living that way. It doesn't mean you have to be the model of health. It just means that each choice you make is reflective of somebody whose aspiration, whose identity is tied up in being a model of health for their children,
Mm.
you know? And then
Yes.
eventually you become that because each choice you make ties into that. Now, I say this aspirational self identity has value in that sense. It has a lot of value in tying your habits to your identity. But on the other hand, if we get too caught up in the story we tell ourselves about ourselves, and that's where this ego comes in, right? If we get too caught up in this idea of like, I'm X, Y, or Z, and it can only
Mm.
be this way, and this is an affront to me and my identity. Like, that's, I think, where a lot of conflict comes in, is that people see themselves as a certain way.
Certain
And then if
way.
somebody does something or
Ah,
says something that challenges that, then they feel offended or they feel, and people are allowed to feel offended. I'm not telling people don't feel offended, but I think a lot of conflict comes then internal, and we make ourselves feel upset, right? So I feel upset
yeah.
because I feel offended that I'm not being, so that in that sense I say that there's a downside to having too much attachment to your self identity. But we all have a self identity. So if you can create an aspirational one that actually drives desirable behavior and leads to, the type of life, the health feast basically, the type of life
Yeah.
that you enjoy, that you want to live, then that goes a long way in leading to a kind of more fulfilling life.
Yeah, because I was talking about earlier about how like the micro decisions that I was making leading me where I'm going, the path that I've been on for the last few months is not where I want to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you were just talking about how those choices that you make to get to your people. You hear a lot of the best version of myself, like that's like a real
Mm-hmm.
big term, but
Oh, sure.
essentially that's what it is.
That's right.
It's this that it's who do you aspire to, like you know who do you want to aspire to be, as far as like who do you want to be in X amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, how does okay let me ask you this, how does one break through like their, I guess,
Yeah.
to use your description, the ego of the story, that their narrative of themselves is going down a path that they don't want to go, like
Mm.
they want to choose a different path.
Yeah.
How does one do that?
Well, Poe, you just said something really cool, actually, which is the narratives. It's a narrative, and narratives can be helpful, and they can also lead us astray. This is where ego, I think, can cause so much problem, because when you think about, then sometimes people tell themselves a story that I'm destined to fail, or that this is never going to work out for me. And if you tell yourself that story, guess what?
It happens.
You're going to manifest that
Yeah.
story. So when you let go of identity, and when you say, and
Mm.
we've talked about this, right? When you say, I'm a perpetual learner, there's no necessary failure. It's just, it did I, you know, I experienced this, I did this thing. It's like when I have patients who smoke, and I tell them to, when they're trying to quit really any behavior you're trying to quit, the phone, food, I say, okay, you're going to keep, odds are you're going to do that thing again, right? As much as you tell yourself you don't want to do that thing, you're going to do that thing again. And the way we're going to get you to change that behavior is to become really curious and really aware of that behavior, what that behavior feels like. So, Poe, you mentioned, I don't know, tell me, like, what's a thing that you're doing right now that doesn't feel good to you, like it's not good for you, but you keep doing it.
Not being physically active.
Okay.
I know it's not good for me, but I'm still like I when I was active, I always felt good after. Like whether it was walking, whether it was jumping on the bike or something that, playing or, but I'm not prioritizing physical health, anything physical, whether that's going for a walk or doing something.
Yeah. And what are you doing instead?
Nothing. Whether it's, I shouldn't say nothing, but
Yeah.
whether
You're
that's
doing something.
consuming, yeah, well, I'm either watching my kids or, my little one or consuming some type of, TV, YouTube,
Okay.
Netflix.
There you go. I mean, so you're using that time differently, and so it comes at. Here's how it come at. First, I would say sharpen that self identity, the aspirational self identity. Okay, I'm somebody that takes care of himself. I'm somebody that's my health is important to me for all these reasons, and then ask of yourself like with movement. I always say ask yourself what you enjoy doing. So you enjoy walking. You may get back to things you used to do before, but you're not in the place that you used to be before. So you do the things now that feel good to you. Movement should feel good, okay? You should feast on your movement. Just like
Mm.
everything else we're talking about, movement should feel good. Then I would say beyond that, it's what you're doing instead and sort of addressing that because that is a barrier right now in some ways. Because
Mm.
if you're lying down on the couch browsing your phone, I don't know if that's what you're doing. Is that ever happening?
Usually at night, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Before I go to bed, yes, yes,
There you go. So then you ask yourself, is that what? Why am I doing that? Why are you doing that?
yeah. I got you. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, the punchline is
So
you're doing that because you're addicted. We're all addicted.
very true. Yeah,
Um, and your kids, how old are your kids? 4.
yeah. I have a 4-year-old, 11-year-old, 13-year-old, and a 14-year-old.
Okay, 11, 13, and 14. So the
Mm-hmm.
3 are older, and then you have younger one. What's their relationship like with their devices? Do they have devices?
They do. I would say that I can't say that my youngest is always on a device, but I know that we have used a device to keep her, from running around, or it's a distraction for us. But after this conversation, I'm tying it all together. Like the more they see me on mine, and the more they're gonna want to be on theirs. So yeah, I see that.
Can I tell you? Can I share something that happened to me a few days ago? So what was it? Friday. Oh, Friday night. My wife and my daughter. My wife got tickets to go see Michelle Obama speak, so she took my daughter.
Oh,
And so I'm going to be home with my two sons, who are 8 and 7. And my 8-year-old on Wednesday or Thursday, he said, "Daddy, you can't be on your phone after they leave. Like you have to spend time with us." And I
mm,
and I said, "Of course I'm going to spend time with you. What?" And he said, "Well, you are on your phone a lot, and he said you're usually either reading the news or what did he say? You're either reading the news or doing email or doing messages."
wow.
And I was like, okay, wow, interesting. I didn't realize. I mean, and one thing I realized is I used to have this practice. I used to have this practice where I would come home from work and I would put my phone away. I like to say I would put my phone to bed. And I decided a couple years ago that my phone's bed was going to be not next to my bed.
Mm,
And so my phone goes in my bathroom actually, which is adjacent to our room. So I can still like hear it if it doesn't really matter. That's where I put my phone. I park my phone there. Well, recently I switched to a new job, and I work from home now. It's my new job, and So, and I have some like various hours, like sometimes I have evening hours and sometimes I have, so that regularity where, so my phone has just been in my pocket. And it took him saying that for me to realize that my habits had like, you know, changed so much
Gotcha.
over the last probably month or two. And another thing, the last thing I'll say about that is I taught my kids, and my daughter still does this. And when she sees me on my phone, she says, "Daddy, are you doing work or are you addicted?" That's the question I ask them to ask
To
me.
ask you.
And doing work includes things like sometimes I'm ordering groceries or, but I also realized, like my wife said this to me yesterday because I was like, I'm ordering groceries. It's okay. And she said, um, just think about maybe being like a little bit more intentional about the times you do those things. So you're not necessarily doing it when you're with the family. Like if it's an
Mm,
emergency, that's fine. But
yeah.
otherwise, and so I thought about all those things. So I'm now going to try and be like, today's the
More
first
intentional
day,
about it.
but more intentional about putting my phone away. Because if it's not with me, then I don't have the temptation. It's just that
Yeah.
it's if it's with you, you feel it in your pocket. It does all these things to try and get you to open it. You think of something and you're like, "Oh, I'll just check my phone," and then you get stuck on it. And your kids see that, and then your kids sort of, I don't want, I mean, this is the thing. I don't want my kids to feel like that's like normal is for us to just be on devices. Like my wife and I have talked about that from since they were young age, and it's actually me. I probably have the biggest problem in the family. And so the fact that they're calling me my 8 year
Yeah.
old is saying, okay, you're going to be home
Yeah.
with us. Like, and so I definitely didn't have the phone out. I put the phone away, but I'm happy he told me that.
I was going to say, I think for me, I do. I'm not going to say I don't have a problem with devices, but what helps me in my line of work is we don't have cell phones,
Oh, that's right.
so I leave mine. So for anywhere between 3 to 4 days, while I'm at work, I leave. It gets left in the car. So for anywhere from 8 to 16 hours, I have no phone, and actually it's kind of nice. So
Yeah, I'm
I
sure.
feel like that's my, like I don't. Obviously, when I get off from work, I go on, I check my phone because I got to see what, messages and all the emails, all that. But just having that space, I don't feel like I always need to be on it. Now, when I'm bored, when I'm not at working and I'm bored, I have these little, chess games and stuff on there that I like to play. But I can't say. What I will say I am addicted to is consuming YouTube. Like I'm on that
Yeah.
thing all the time. When I'm not at work, or I spend,
Yeah.
I wonder if there's. I wish I could go in there and see the tally of how many hours. And anything from sports to some politics stuff, some how tos,
Uh-huh.
DIY,
The
but
health
all the
feast,
stuff,
I hope.
and the health feast. Yeah, but yeah, I think
So,
to
so
put that
Poe,
to it,
so
yeah,
to get back to what you said, because we were talking about why your exercise habit and why it's not happening. It's not that you don't have like big uh, goalposts and lighthouse. I would say lighthouse in your life for big reasons why it's important to you. It's not that you don't understand the benefit. You've experienced what it feels like to exercise consistently. That's the other thing. A lot of people look at exercise as a chore, and the people who exercise consistently, myself included, I make exercise a priority because I know it makes me feel good. I know it makes
yeah,
me feel good. But if you have gotten away from it and you're not experiencing that quote unquote runner's high, it doesn't even have to be that runner's high. It's just
yeah,
even getting like 30 minutes, 20, 30 minutes of movement regularly, like you just feel better. You said it actually. You said
yeah,
like I never finished a bout of exercise where I didn't feel better at the end.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you've gotten removed from that. You haven't experienced that because once your body starts craving that, it happens on repeat. But
You're right.
initially you have to make it happen. So how do you remove the barriers to making it happen? That's why I got down the whole path with your devices because I can hear
Yeah,
that you're using your devices more and looking at the screen more than than you want to, and that in turn is like time you could be using to doing, because most people when they say they don't have time for, you didn't say that,
Yeah,
I
no,
wouldn't have
no,
let you say that,
no.
but most people when they
No.
say they don't have time to exercise, then we start digging in. Well, what are you spending your time doing,
Right.
right? What are you spending your
Yeah.
time doing? So you're spending your time doing something else. And so what I tell people who are trying to get over an addiction, and myself when I'm trying to get over addiction, it's like when I do that thing, I just want to be really mindful. I won't always be, but I try to be more mindful about it. So just even the craving, like the inclination to pull my phone out and look at it, like just if you can pause and think like, what does that feel like, and can you pause and say, I mean, I really like Catherine Price. Wrote this. She's a columnist for the New York Times. She wrote a book several years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, called "Breaking Up with Your Phone." And it was all. This was about this. It was about how to have a more kind of mindful relationship with your device. And one of the cues that she gives, and you can even put something. Sometimes people put something on the back of their phone. They'll put something like a sticker that has that's raised. So when you pick up your phone, you feel it. It has to be some cue to ask yourself this question. You can even put it on your background, like in words. You can say, "Why are you using your phone?" And just like my kids ask me, "Daddy, are you doing work? Or are you addicted?" You can ask yourself a very similar question. Do I have to functionally do something? Am I using the phone as a tool? Because it is a very powerful tool. I'm not suggesting people get rid of their phones. That would be really hard to live in like current society. And can we use them more like tools? Because when we become the product and we're addicted to them, they hinder us in life. And I mentioned how it doesn't sleep next to my bed. Where does your? I'm curious. Where does your phone live?
Well, it's next to me. It doesn't. It's. I mean, I charge it wherever I'm at. It's. We talked about this before too. It's like an alarm too. So that's the thing of
That's right.
I think you're saying try getting a different alarm, a standalone alarm for waking up for work.
Uh huh. Yeah,
But
I mean,
I'm gonna try that.
I have a standalone alarm. I should maybe, holidays are coming up. You can put it on your wish list. Somebody can get you an alarm clock. No, but if you get one, Po, that, and you should. There are these ones, and they're not even that expensive anymore. The really nice ones are, but this 20, $30 you can get. They're basically like, they light up like the sun in the morning, and they chirp like birds chirping. That's the alarm. Like, it's not like the alarm clocks of old where it's like beep beep beep. It's
Yeah.
so to get back to close the loop on exercise. Next thing I would say to you is, let's pick something small, both maybe for the exercise habit and also for the device habit. And so for the device habit, you could ask yourself, like, just that. Maybe my next step is I move the phone to another room and get an alarm clock. But let's put an actual date to that. Like, let's figure out, when are you getting the alarm clock? When are you making the move? And plan for it. Because otherwise, nothing's going to change.
I think I have an extra alarm clock. It's not the one that you're describing, but it's a
Okay.
standalone. Yeah, I
That's
could
good.
put that.
You already have it.
Yeah. So
When
I can.
when are you gonna make that change?
I'll probably do it maybe later this evening. Bring it out of
Okay.
the garage and plug
There
it
you
in
go.
and set
Okay,
it.
today. Yeah, you'll do it
And
today.
then as far as my phone goes, I'll probably put it. I'm trying to think of where would be a good space to put
Could
it.
be in the
Maybe I mean,
kitchen.
yeah, I could put it away, just away from my where I
Or
sleep.
yeah, or do you have yeah, or I found the bathroom was good because my wife and I have a separate bathroom, so it's, although my kids go in there all the time, but it's just, there was a spot with a plug where I could just keep it, and
Yeah,
it didn't have to worry, because in the kitchen and stuff, I'm I'm gonna see it. If I charge it on the kitchen counter, it kind of defeats the purpose. I want to put it away. Like if I put it away, I want to put it away so it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. Just like when you're at work.
Mm.
Just like
Yeah,
when you're at
that's
work.
why I feel like I don't. I mean, I definitely think I'm somewhat addicted to it, but I don't think I'm to the point where it's like if I see it that I need to pick it up because
Okay.
I go hours at a time without having it, and I
Yeah.
like I said, I kind of like it. So, but I still think it's a good practice, right, to get it out of sight, out of mind, and not have to think because I think that will lead into like, okay, well, what can I be doing with my time, versus scrolling and
Yeah.
all that stuff.
So
So,
so
anyways,
so that's good. Okay. So you'll think about where you're going to move the phone. You get an alarm clock. The other piece of it is what's an exercise goal that you think that's realistic for you.
we
And
started this.
yeah. So you do how frequent and what you're going to do.
Um, I think 15 to 20 minutes of activity and longer or more. I can't say I want to because I enjoy walking around the school. I haven't done that in a minute, in some time, but I would say even just going out to the garage and getting on the bike for 15 to 20 minutes of just of
Okay.
just cycling.
You
I think that
have
would
you
be
have
good.
a exercise bike in the garage. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So we used to. Have you ever heard of this? Maybe you haven't. It's called the Fit FITT
Fit
for
train.
exercise. Yeah, no. It's not a type of training. It's an
Oh,
exercise
okay.
prescription. It's actually how we prescribe exercise in lifestyle medicine.
Huh.
Um, and so it's or in like sports medicine, it comes out of like physical therapy. It's not new to lifestyle medicine, but that's how we do it too. F stands for frequency. So how frequently you're going to do something. Intensity, and it should be ideally at moderate intensity. Moderate, it could be vigorous, but for you, I would say like you should do a moderate intensity, and then time, and then type. So how many days a week am I going to do it? Basically, what am I going to do? How many days a week am I going to do it? For what intensity and for how long? But it's very specific in that way. Okay, and what am I going to do? So for you, it'd be like I'm going to use the exercise bike for 20 minutes. How frequently do you want to do that? Like how many
Um,
days in the week can you commit to doing that? And be realistic.
I would say at least 4 times a week
Four
because
times a
I'm
week.
just
That's all.
I can
Okay.
say yeah, and
That's
that's at
awesome.
least 15. Yeah, maybe like at least 15 times or 15
15,
minutes a day.
15
Yeah.
minutes a day, 4 times a week. Okay. So in a week, you get an hour, at least an hour. You might get more. Um, what days are you, and then we get very granular, like what days of the week are you going to do it?
I would say for sure Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Saturday,
Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Because your big work days are Wednesday, Thursday, Friday,
Wednesday,
right?
Thursday, Friday. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And those are like 16-hour days.
Okay. Um, it's good. So all you want to do, your goal is to keep track. Goal is to do it too and be consistent, but also like tracking is most important because next week I'm going to ask you how many times you did it. And it's revealing. If you did it every time and you're like, yeah, it was no problem, then you might change your goal and say, I want to do 20 minutes. If you only did it once, then we have to ask why this isn't a good
Mm,
goal for you. Like, what's the
right.
barrier to doing it? Is there, and it may
Mm,
just be like, oh, there's no cue or I'm not. So that's why being very intentional about when you're going to do it is important too. So and we can do that right now. Like, is there could you drop your kids off on school Monday and Tuesday?
yeah.
So could that be the thing? Like, I drop them off, I come do 15 minutes of bike.
Yes. I can do that. Either come home and do it right after I drop them off or after we finish our
Oh, that's
podcast.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because those are the
Yeah,
two
like
the windows. Like today might be after we finish our podcast, and then I'll either go out to the garage, just jump on the
I
bike
love
for
that.
15 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
Um,
Tuesdays.
we should. Do you have a Apple Watch?
Yeah, I do. Oh, we should share. our
Oh,
activity with each other.
dude, this, yes.
Yes,
That,
Poe.
that's that,
And then we'll
yes.
get into a competition. No, I've never done that. I've never
Well,
done a.
no, but you can always go in there and be like, hey, where's the
Okay,
calories?
no, this is great. Yes, you should definitely share. Oh, Poe, share your data with me. I love that. I mean, I don't have a lot of people who share with me, but I love it. I love to give like a little,
Accountability
high
thing too.
five, claps, or fist
Yeah,
bump when I see you close your rings and stuff like that. Yeah,
right.
absolutely, absolutely. Yes, yes,
Get
yes.
you there now.
Okay.
Okay.
No, but I want you to be specific. Okay, we don't. You don't have to come up with it right this second, but think. Okay, Monday. When am I going to do it? After we do this conversation. Tuesday. When am I going to do it? Saturday, Sunday. When am I going to do it? Is it when I first get up?
So Tuesday, so tomorrow I can do it as soon as I get home dropping off the kids. I can go in there and just jump on the bike for 15 to 20 minutes.
And you enjoy
Uh,
that. Can I just be clear?
oh yeah,
You
yeah I
really
do.
enjoy it. What do you
I
enjoy
do.
about the bike? Is it one of those like
Uh,
spin bikes?
yes, it's a Peloton. So I kind of like having I like having the person. So years ago, I just want to say, a friend of mine who was a spin instructor, we used to actually go to the spins. That's how I got in the best shape, was through spin. That's how I
Okay.
was able to start running, was through cycling. Like I didn't start running and then cycling. I actually started cycling and then I
Ah,
started running. So I know the value to it. I,
so
I just enjoy
you've
it.
used it recently, and when you've done
Correct.
it, you've been like, that felt really good. I enjoyed that.
Yes.
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 Okay, then that's a good exercise. That's a good form of movement. That it should check those boxes. Okay. So good. This is a really good goal. And then when are you going to do it on Saturday?
Saturday would be same, probably earlier in the morning before we go to tournaments or anything like that. And if it's early tournament or early games, then I'll do it either when I get home, jump on the mic. I don't know the times, but there's not time specific just because I don't know usually when the times of the games are.
Well,
But it's
so
either
is there an
before,
opportunity? Is there an opportunity to do it before you leave in the
yes,
morning?
yes, because sometimes the tournaments are like 8 a.m., 9 a.m., and we got to leave it like to travel to like Sacramento or. But yes, so
Well, could you
I would
get up? Could you
prioritize
get
it.
up 30 minutes earlier on those? Just always plan to get up whatever time it is. Just plan to get up
Mhm.
30. Have a 30-minute buffer so you can do or something like that. The reason I suggest that is because you don't know what's going to happen in those tournaments. You don't know if something gets delayed, if there's traffic coming back from Sacramento, like
Yeah,
then suddenly the thing that you really want to do, that makes you feel good, that is good for you, that fulfills this aspirational self-identity, you didn't do. And that doesn't feel good, actually. When you don't
yeah,
do the thing that you want to do and you knew you should do and you wanted to do, it doesn't happen, you're like, oh. And then you start getting resentful sometimes.
yes.
You're like,
I
oh, I
agree.
have so
I
many
agree.
responsibilities and I don't even get to take. So don't even get there. You take control of it yourself. You give yourself that half hour in the morning. No one can take that away from you. You're the only one that can take that away from you.
Gotcha.
Think
I
about
you know
it.
we kind of talked about this a little bit. We talked about making the agreements that you have with yourself. Remember that, like
Yeah,
following through with those
yeah,
agreements,
that's
and I
right.
agree. I think as long as I can, the challenge is working 16-hour shift Friday, coming home late, 11:30, 12, and then having to get up earlier. That's the reason why I'm
Yeah.
saying. But I get the point is prioritize it as something to do the first thing you do when you get up in the morning to get it done. That way I meet my agreement of setting the time, the discipline of it, and
Mm-hmm.
then the rest of the day, I finished
You finished the
what
most
I
important thing. One of the most
exactly
important things. You checked off the box first thing in the morning, and that feels really good
right.
for so many
So
reasons. Well,
so yeah,
sleep is important too, Poe. I mean, if you're having to get up, if you're having to leave at 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. and you get home. What time do you get home on Friday night?
Usually about 11, 11:30.
Okay. So maybe it won't work every Saturday, but you have a plan A, a plan B, right? So
Right,
plan A
right.
is I get up early, but if there's not just enough time to sleep, plan B is I go right after we get back,
Gotcha.
right? Or
Yeah,
plan C is I do a half hour on Sunday. You know,
gotcha.
don't just have one, because then if plan A doesn't happen, you're like, "Oh, well, I missed my chance." No.
Right.
You
No, and
didn't
I and
miss your
I've been
chance.
and I've been though. I understand like the whole making sure that I get it done and prioritizing. I've been there. Like it's just getting back on track. It's just starting again.
Starting again. Okay. Well, I think that's good. So I think that goal is good. You're going to share your Apple Watch stuff with me. So when you log an exercise, I'll be able to see it.
Yep.
And
That
you
creates
know,
accountability.
the thing maybe we can end on is what you just said, which is we've talked about, which is like having this accountability to yourself. Like how do you show up for yourself, and why do you do that? And I think that comes full circle. It's sort of all the reasons we talked about. It's when the pain and discomfort of staying the same is more than the kind of discomfort of changing. And
Right.
I don't think you want to stay the same. I know you don't. You're very clear about that. Change is something that you readily want to happen in your life.
Yeah, I think it's a necessity. Like I think I definitely I can't live. I can't go on thinking that the way that the lifestyle changes that I have made are something that I need to like not. It's like it's hard to like not do something when you know what's good for you.
That's right. That's
Like
right.
I know what it was like. You know, the way I felt just managing my exercise or movement and the food and the sleep. I mean, now I just want to just execute. Now I just want to get it done.
Well, I should have asked this. Is exercise like where you want to start? You
I
know,
think that's what works for me
okay.
because when I am physically active, and this is just what I learned about myself is that once I'm doing something like that, like when I'm physically active, I find that I start going back like, okay, I got to start eating better because I didn't just go and work out and then now I'm not taking care of the food part of it, which is just as important, you know, um, because well, actually, now that I'm actually gonna, I actually think maybe I should go back to meditation. Actually, after our discussion today, maybe I should start with the meditation.
Hmm.
That would be something that
Hmm.
I think I could start on first,
Hmm.
and then the physical part, the movement, and then
Hmm.
figuring out the food. You know, what do you
I
think?
I was thinking the same thing, but I didn't want to say that. I wasn't going to tell you. I wasn't going to tell you. So, no,
Well, I think my mind was just thinking, okay, yeah, I got to start, going into this.
yeah.
But then I was like, you know what? Maybe I should meditate first
Yeah,
because I know the value there too.
that's right. You've experienced the value of that, the stillness, calm, and then it just allows you to you're once you start like making, following these little goals, like it's layering those habits and then being intentional about how you use your time and how you structure your time, and all of that is benefits from having more kind of foundational awareness. Having more
Mm.
foundational awareness, then your intentionality like becomes superpower, because you're intentional, and you're also like you're able to um well, just get out of your head and understand like
Yeah.
why you're doing things, not just for yourself but for the greater good, for the family, or all these things then start to like um these decisions start to become a little bit more in flow with who you are, and
Yeah.
not feel so forced or jarring.
Yeah. No, I gotcha. I mean, what came to me after you were saying that is like when you're intentional about something, it's you can manifest things that much quicker.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like intention plus the mechanism
Yeah.
equals the result.
Yeah.
So like,
That's right. That's right. That's right. And you can understand then like why, you can connect with like how things, when I said mindfully like use your device, or mindfully eat, or like if you eat a bunch of food that you otherwise didn't want to eat, you're like, that's food I don't want to eat, but you eat it, and then you start to connect with, like, after Halloween, not the day of Halloween, but the week later, I ate a bunch of candy. And then I just like connected with how bad that felt. Like for so many, like it felt bad because of like you feel hungover from the sugar, and it felt bad because it was not in congruence with this aspirational self identity I have for myself. Like all these things. And then I was like, you start to get disillusioned with the candy, or you start to get disillusioned with your device. You start to get disillusioned with the cigarettes, or you start to get disillusioned with the food. Doesn't happen right away, but when I was at a dinner party on Saturday night, and they served duck, and they served lamb, everyone was raving about the lamb because it was like falling apart, and I was like, and I was fine. I didn't want it. I didn't want it. It wasn't even that I was looking at it and I was like, oh, I really want that, but I don't. I was like, I don't really want that. And then for me to reflect on that, I was like, when did that happen? At some point in the last 5 years, that happened. It wasn't right away. When I first started eating this way, I still wanted meat, like enjoyed it in on some level, but was over time I've become more and more disillusioned with it, to the point now where like I had no desire um, to eat it. And then I was like, that's so cool actually, because like the thing I want to do is actually the natural default for me. If that can happen more and more in your life, you gravitate towards exercise because it feels really good. You gravitate towards meditation because it brings stillness and calm in your body. All these things you start doing because they feel good. That's the health feast, because then you don't have to force yourself to do these things. You don't have to say, I need accountability, I need somebody making sure I'm doing this, I need to show. It's like, I do these things, you prioritize these things because they feel good to you. But that's the process of getting there. That's the process
Yeah.
of getting there. So we went through this, but we'll go through it right now really quickly to end. Like, what's your meditation commitment going to be?
Um, let's see. I will commit to meditating at least 10 minutes a day before I get out of bed. So
Okay.
it's the first thing that I do when I wake up. Maybe set
And you
the
can do that
alarm,
every day?
the standalone alarm, yeah, to do a 10-minute meditation.
Uh-huh. And do you
I'll
have someone?
say,
Go ahead.
I'll say it every day because it's a stretch, but I will say every day. Because
Okay.
I mean, why wouldn't I? If I knew, if I mean, I haven't practiced it, but I'm gonna say I'm gonna do 10 minutes a day before I wake up or before I
But you
get out
have
of bed.
but you have practiced regular meditation. And
Yes.
after only, I mean, after I don't know how long in those 3 weeks did you sort of realize, like, wow, this changes my vibration
It
of
immediately
being
happened.
on a regular basis.
Yeah. It immediately
Yeah.
changed it.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
yeah. So I would
So
say
there
that,
you go. So all I want you to do is focus on, today you already woke up. So if you want to do 10 minutes of meditation today, go ahead. If you have the time, that's wonderful. But tomorrow, I want you to just focus on the experience and doing tomorrow. You don't have to focus about the next day. You don't have to think like, oh, 10 minutes every day. Am I going to be, what if I miss a day? You don't worry about that. You don't worry about that. Just focus on the experience tomorrow and focus on how it feels and focus on like if you feel tension release in your body, for anything that feels good to you, or if you have some realization as a result of that,
mm,
just connect with that. That's how you're going to cultivate the habit, not from
yeah,
telling yourself I need to do this every day,
true.
but actually
Right.
doing it and connecting with like it feeling good, feeling beneficial.
Mhm.
And then once you that sort of resonates in you, at some point, I don't know, it maybe sooner rather than later, but at some point you're just going to do it. You're going to do it because body's going to say, I really like how I feel when I do that. You don't have to think about it. It'll just become this pre-programmed, this is the way I operate because, and then the habit may change. You may decide to do more. You may decide to do a different practice. You may decide to do some breath work. That's stuff we can explore. But right now, you're just going to say, I love it. 10
Tomorrow.
minutes every
Hmm.
day, every day. And then next week, we'll check in on how you did with that goal.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
All right. How you feeling, Poe?
Good,
Feeling more.
actually.
How's your motivation?
Yeah.
How's your motivation?
I'll say at a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably like right now. I want to go out and do this workout.
There you go. Okay. Good. You can still, by the way, if you want, you can still do that small exercise. It's not small. It's that. It's
15
a really.
minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, you could still try to do that, but if that feels like too much, if in 2 or 3 days you're like, I'm trying to do too much, then
No,
pare
I
back
think
and ask yourself, what is most
right.
important to me, and do that thing. And
Okay.
then you can expand afterwards. One thing we didn't talk about, which would be a really good episode or future topic, and we will talk about, is just like the intentionality with your time. And I know you have a schedule where you have to work like 16-hour shifts and sometimes getting home late and leaving really early. So if we can, like on the days, just what you're doing, like on the days when you're not working, if you can be very intentional about how you block your time, your habits, getting like, optimizing your sleep when you can. And that comes back to like, using your device before bedtime and things like that. We can talk about that. But that's going to do wonders. And actually, you'll feel better at work too. I think you said that. I think when you came back from Abu Dhabi and you were kind of living that way, you said even work felt like a different experience because you had
Yeah.
built up all this sort of resilience, mental resilience and physical
Yes.
resilience.
The momentum was really good. I just remember meditating before I went into work. Like that's
Mm,
how I would meditate. I was meditating like sometimes twice a day. I would meditate in the morning, and then when
that's
I
right.
got ready and went to work, I'd meditate a few minutes in the car, and then
That's right.
I'd go to work. So yeah, I'm excited. I got
I'm
some.
excited too, Poe.
Yeah.
Everything you need to be successful is within you. I've told you that before, and I believe that. Just like I tell myself that all the time. Everything I need to be successful is within me.
Well, thank you, Dr. Rock, for today's conversation here at the
Mm.
Health Feast.
Thank you, Poe, for today's conversation. I look forward to our next chat.
All right.
All right.
Signing off here.
Okay,
Have a
I'm
good
gonna
day.
stop.